Before we get into our build, I would like to thank today's sponsor, HelloFresh. I have been partnering up with them once a month here on my channel, and quite frankly, they've been making my life a lot easier. I like to be completely honest with you how I use HelloFresh, and for every video, it's been changing, whether it's to prep a meal for my family quickly after being gone, or just when they're out of town, I have an easy way to cook myself something and not have to think about it. This time around, Paul was actually out of town again, but I used it not only to serve myself a meal at night, but to meal prep for the next day so I can focus on my build. From step-by-step recipes to pre-measured ingredients, you'll have everything that you need to get a wow-worthy dinner on the table in just about 30 minutes. And when I say wow-worthy, not only for your family and friends, but I specifically mean in my personal experience for myself, because your girl, she doesn't cook. You can break out of your dinner rut with 17 seasonal chef-curated recipes each week, and what I love most about this entire thing is that I get to log into my account and choose the meals that they have available for that week. HelloFresh is insanely flexible. You can easily change your delivery days or food preferences. You can even skip a week whenever you need. HelloFresh is America's #1 meal kit, and it is now from $6.99 per serving. If you're interested in trying this out, you can actually get started with 8 free meals. That's $80 off your first month of HelloFresh by going to HelloFresh.com and entering promo code METS80. For me in particular, with this build, HelloFresh came in handy because when I would make meals while Paul was out of town, I would just put the remaining into a to-go box, so the next day while actually physically working on the project, I didn't have to sit and cook an entire meal or go somewhere. I could just heat it up, eat it, it's delicious, it's great, and get right back to work. So thank you HelloFresh for not only sponsoring today's video, but helping this build just move along and keeping me well fed. Let's get right into the project now. A couple little pieces of inspiration behind this build. 1, I've never built a coffee table, so I wanted to challenge myself in a new way. 2, I saw my original inspiration coffee table for basically $2,000, and I know that the wood they're using is much higher quality than mine, but I wanted to see how cheap I could actually build a knockoff. I had to run to my local Home Depot and pick up 7 2x6 by 8 foot long pieces of lumber. For the top, I cut those pieces down. I am going to be using a total of 8 2x6 by 4 foot pieces. Since I've never done a build like this, I actually wanted to use a couple of new tools as well. So I marked where I wanted to put my biscuits to join all of the pieces of wood together, and I whipped out my biscuit joiner, adjusted it accordingly, popped that sucker in, and repeated where I made my marks. I continued to do that throughout the remaining pieces of the tabletop, and then grabbed my 2 longest Bessie clamps, smacked them right up on the table. I also tarped off the table because I knew this was going to be a couple day long build and I didn't want to ruin the surface. I whipped out my wood glue, started lining the pieces where they were going to connect, went in with a foam brush just to smooth it all out onto the surfaces, and then into the nooks and crannies where the biscuit joiner was used. Added the biscuits accordingly, and basically like a little puzzle piece, just popped them all into place against one another. All I need is you, baby, baby. When all the pieces were put together, I did clamp it down very tightly, but you need to make sure that your wood doesn't start to bow up or curve, and how you can prevent that is actually adding some 2x4s and clamping it down to your table to keep it straight while it dries. I let that dry overnight, removed the clamps, and propped it up on some scrap wood I had on hand. I also DIY'd a router jig that I linked the video for down below. It is not my idea, so I don't want to tell you how to do it because I would be ripping this video off, and that's not cool. So if you want to learn how to build it, it's down below. I loosely screwed my jig into the center of that piece of wood to create a 36-inch round tabletop. I turned on my router, adjusted the bit just a little bit, and started to go around the entire piece of wood, slowly but surely, little by little, until it fully popped out. All I need is you, baby, baby.
It's sick how you did that.
Take this and then watch. Look how big it is.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy? And then I'm gonna plane it. So that's our coffee table.
You can plane it, so it's all smooth.
Super smooth.
Wow.
Are you kidding me right now?
Tight.
That's oh my god, wait, this is actually really heavy. Oh my gosh, not that bad for my first time. I really I then took my Ryobi planer and just went over both sides of this round. You can tell that the edges are uneven. I wasn't tripping about that. I was gonna put some extra elbow grease and just sand that by hand. I did go a little crazy with the planer, so I decided to step back and work on the base. I cut down a total of 10 2x6x14 pieces. 5 pieces are gonna be one leg. On the middle piece of both legs, which is technically the third piece, I'm gonna be creating a cross-lap joint to connect the 2 pieces to basically create an X base. I found the middle of that piece, made a little tick mark, and then I made a mark of how thick that piece of wood is centered around that tick mark and made that halfway down to that piece of wood, and I'm gonna repeat that on the middle piece of the other leg as well. I was able to use my miter saw to make the longer cuts, and then for that middle portion, it was the perfect size for my multi-tool to fit right in there and chisel its way down. I repeated that to the second piece, and because I couldn't cut them down at the same time, which is ideally what you want to do, but I did a little dry fit and it's not too shabby for my first time, so I just kept it moving. I connected the base pieces exactly how I did the tabletop with my biscuit joiner, some wood biscuits, wood glue clamps. I also planed and sanded down these pieces as well, starting at a 60 grit and working my way to 320. I decided to keep it simple and connect the base to the top by using pocket hole screws, so you just have to have a little Craig jig on hand. I've linked all my tools and materials down below for you as well. This was the moment of truth when I put these 2 pieces together, and clearly right off the bat, you can see there's like a little hole in the center, which means my joint work is not up to par quite yet, but I am just proud of myself for giving it a go. So I decided to move forward, center it on to the bottom of what would be the bottom of the coffee table base, and attach it with those pocket hole screws. You can definitely see that my cuts aren't straight and some things aren't flush, and when you add those pocket hole screws, it starts to pull the wood together and makes it look a little bit more seamless. But there's nothing, some wood plugs for these pocket hole screws, wood filler here, and genuinely around the table where I started to notice my larger mistakes couldn't fix. My original inspiration for this build had these almost just like this dowel moment on the very bottom of the base, so I cut down my 2x6s to fit that table leg and screwed it in from the bottom up into the base. A little tip for you guys if you are staining and you're not sure how it's gonna look on the wood you're staining. I do this scrap wood color blocking, put a piece of painter's tape and try to blend colors or use different colors around it so I can decide on which stain I like the most after letting it sit, which was this flagstone varathane wood stain. I decided to step outside my comfort zone with this gray stain because everything in this room that I'm placing at this coffee table is brown, 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 brown. So I wanted to avoid that as much as I could. After the stain dried completely, I went in and applied my interior polyurethane in a satin finish just to protect it from sun damage and wear and tear, obviously. I decided to keep the coffee table decor to an absolute minimum. I didn't want to go too crazy or overboard. Real reason is because I don't really know how to style a coffee table, but at the end of the day, this is what we're left with, and I don't know. I'm happy, but I know that I can do better, but you have to start somewhere. Although this doesn't look like the $2,000 table I wanted to, I did have someone tell me it looked like a $200 World Market one, which is better than the less than $75 I spent to make this one. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this DIY with me, and please don't forget to check out HelloFresh if you're interested. You can get $20 off each of your first 4 boxes by using my promo code METZ80 and following the link down below. I'll see you Friday for another DIY. Baby, baby.